Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. In this video, I'm going to explain you what is the difference between virtualization and cloud computing. That is interesting subject and it's often confused because we have a private cloud, we have a public cloud, we have a virtualization, which acts as some kind of a private cloud, but it's not the same. So we will explain what is the virtualization, the difference between the virtualization and the cloud, and the types of a public and private cloud. So maybe you remember from the previous video, if you have watched, where I explain what is virtualization. Now I'm gonna briefly recap what is virtualization. So virtualization is if you have one server and you can make act as a many with allocation of its resources. Let's say you can add a hypervisor that sits on the hardware, and you can allocate many virtual machines as long as your resources allow. So you can have on the same server, you can have many virtual machines, which they act as separate instances. So basically, you have many servers in one server. And if the process stops there, that is not a cloud, it's only a virtualization. So what is cloud computing actually? First of all, the cloud computing, the provider's computing resources, those are the resources are pulled to serve multiple customers. So they are using multi-tenant model. So with a different physical and virtual resources which are dynamically allocated by demand. Those resources need to be allocated into centralized pools in order to be called a cloud. And after that, we can add, there is added a management software layer, which gives administrative control of the infrastructure, automation layer that will replace the human interaction with repeatable instructions. Also, like the virtualized environment, it can be accessed by other computers in the network or in the internet. The cloud computing contains a repository of IT resources that can be provisioned and scaled very quickly, and they deliver the added benefits with automated infrastructure scaling, dynamic resource pool. So, in general, virtualization can make one resource act like many, while cloud computing lets different departments through a private cloud or companies through a public cloud, they access a single pool of automatically provisioned resources. So maybe you know we have a private cloud, public clouds, hybrid clouds. There is some comparison between the two. Public clouds, as you know, the Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and many others, they have publicly shared virtualized resources. Whereas the private cloud, you can have a software for the private cloud installed in your data center, and you're gonna have a privately shared virtualized resources. They support multiple customers, the public cloud, whereas the private cloud, it is a cluster of dedicated customers that you're gonna have inside your local network or inside your data center. The both of them support internet connectivity, VPN over the internet, whereas the private cloud, you can connect to your private cloud via fiber, Ethernet, or any other private network. The public cloud is suited for less confidential information, where of some regulations you may not be allowed to store confidential information onto a public cloud, where there comes the private cloud, which is your own managed cloud service in your own infrastructure. You can have confidential information and that is only for if the regulations don't allow. As you already know, we have a public cloud providers, which is Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, DigitalOcean, and many others, where as a private cloud, we have an OpenStack, that is an open source software that you can install in your, even in your computer, on a virtual machine, or on your data center, which can act as a private cloud, which we will install later in the next video, and you will see how the OpenStack works. Google, Dell, and Amazon Web Services have their own private cloud, whereas where we can see the OpenStack, it basically acts as the publicly shared cloud providers like Amazon, like Google Cloud, but the difference is that it's open source and it's installable in your own network, in your own data center. You can deploy a Kubernetes cluster, you can deploy services via Terraform and infrastructure. They have their own open SDK, OpenStack SDK, and you can access their resources via the Horizon Web User Interface. Many similarities as the virtualization. You have a bare metal setup, virtual machines, containers, and so you can access all those engines, the compute, networking, storage via your APIs or via the OpenStack dashboard. They have a different services, which they have their own names for every service. Let's say Keystone is the identity service where you can add users, add privileges to those users. Horizon they call the dashboard. Nova they call the computing service. Neutron is the networking. Heat is the orchestration, and others. Like let's say there is a Cinder as a block storage, Trove as a database service, and many others. In the next video, when we will install OpenStack in our premise, I will show you each one of those services, what does it do, and how it is been operated, and what services it can offer. So stay tuned and watch the next video where I will explain OpenStack and its services. Thank you very much for viewing. Have a good evening. Bye bye.